Okay, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 30 of Over the Head Podcast. I'm a little rusty. Took my first bye week in 30 weeks last week. So thank you to my great co-host Kyle Hartzell and Bubba Fairman joining the show. To recap the first round of the playoffs, I was in Washington, the wedding of a good lacrosse named Drew Snyder. So he fresh off of his late season win. Sorry, Will. Vibes were high in Seattle, and then a little wine country with the family. So I'll be honest with you guys, I didn't miss you. I didn't miss you that much, but I am happy to be back and hopefully not too rusty. So this week it's Kyle's turn. Kyle is out. I think he's hunting an elk, like quite literally, just trekking through the wilderness, eating acorns and grass and until he kills an elk and gets to have a real dinner. So anyway, he's very offline. So I got a really special guest. Before I kind of tie in, Will Manny is here with me to do his best Draymond Green or Micah Parsons, active current player, still breaking down the league he's playing in, which I find very entertaining. But, you know, Will was one of the guests early on the show. I've told you this offline, Will, but like one of my favorite, if not my favorite interviews, and just one that I got like a lot of feedback on from people. You were really vulnerable just talking about what it was like, you know, when you weren't dressing and getting cut, kind of at a point where obviously you're a legend of the game and top 5 all time in goals or points or whatever it is. So a lot of people like come to me and say like, I learned a lot listening to Will and like your resilience. So, you know, today's not going to be an interview of Will, but I would like recommend anybody that hasn't listened to that episode, go back and listen to it because there's a lot of really good stuff in there. But Will, welcome and thank you for agreeing to join me here.
Yeah, fired up, Ratty. Thank you. And yeah, Heartsy's in the woods somewhere out my window over there trying to
Yep,
kill something.
the Utah wilderness.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
yeah, just fired up to talk shop
me
here and put the analyst hat on and just talk lacrosse and do what we do and do what we love here.
me and Hartzell are great co-hosts because, you know, I'm downtown Atlanta. Hartzell lives like in a log cabin in a mountain in Utah. I like I'll catch bugs in the house in mason jars and release them out into the
Fireflies?
backyard and say run along. And Hartzell will just go out and shoot animals with a bow and arrow. So you know, and here we are, great friends, very very different people, which is uh, maybe part of what makes this work. So Will, like before we jump in, obviously big weekend of games. We're going to talk about. We'll recap Water Dogs, Whip Snakes, and Chaos Redwoods. But since we got you here, obviously like brutal end of the season for the Cannons, and not just brutal in terms of like, you know, it stinks to lose, but I just feel like the high and low of like you guys are rolling. I'm sure in the locker room going from feeling like we're about to make a championship run to all of a sudden 2 losses in 2 days and now you're out of the tournament. Can you just maybe give me a little something on what that was like and what you feel like is next for your squad and yourself, and then we'll move into to the team still playing.
Yeah, it was crazy, dude. Going into that weekend felt as confident as ever, right? We won some games, we lost some games. There's, teams in the playoffs that are 4-5, four and like how it was. You guys talked about it all year long.
Yeah.
Obviously the Atlas and the Outlaws played really well and were really consistent, won more games than other teams, but 2 games in 2 days going to home, all we needed to do was win one to make the playoffs. You're like, all right, let's go. We haven't played the Redwoods. And obviously playing the Whip Snakes. I didn't play in that first game versus the Whips, but we weren't looking at them. We were really good at focusing just on the Redwoods for that Friday night game. And it was an insane game. We were down and we come back, tie it, and we lose on a one-handed goal from Ryder. But that's just that's how it is. It comes down to player execution, man. That's what when I reflect back on those games, I think that especially the Friday night game, we were in control, then we lost control, then they were running away with it. We chipped back into it, and it came down to that one play at the end. Where Ryder scores, and then we get a chance. Soup's got a shot from 5 yards. He cans that 9 out of 10 times. That one time, Erlen makes the save, and it was a great save. But that's how that game unfolded. And I thought we did a good job of saying, hey, we're not done. We get to play tomorrow. And, the Whips they played a good game. They had a good game plan
Yeah.
defensively. I thought they pressed out on us and out of the box a little bit. Um, Joe Nards did a great job at the face-off X. And um, it was, in general, it was really hard to understand how fast it ended. We lose
Yeah.
that
Yeah. Yeah.
game, and I was just
Yeah.
like, wait, season's over.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
crowd, it was just such a great setup, but we didn't execute as a team and as specifically as players to grant ourselves to that next game. So it ended quickly. It sucked, but you know how it is, man. Like one team wins every single year, but not making the playoffs is definitely a sour taste in the mouth for sure.
Well, first off, there's the difference because you say player execution. I was like, fire every assistant coach on the staff in my breakdown of the game. So we'll leave that one alone. But uh, you also talk about, I mean, not making the playoffs again. Like in your career, I'm sure that hasn't happened very many times. It happened to me quite a bit. The Blaze years were challenging for sure. But like you said, I mean, that's the nature of this league, and I think there's a longer conversation to be had in the offseason going to next year about like the back to back. I mean, the home teams. I totally understand why the league does it from a lot of different perspectives, mainly money, but you didn't see home teams like perform very well this year, and I just think it's a heavy weight like for you guys to have to turn around and play what essentially became a playoff game on no days rest. Now I don't feel bad for you because every team in the league can do it. It was just crazy that it happened in that way on the last game of the season and against a team who basically like I'm sure it would be hard for you to admit it, and I never would have as a player. But watching it, it just looked like your guys' legs got heavy in the second half,
No,
and they just had more juice.
it
Like,
definitely it's true. You could feel it, you
yeah,
could see it. Um, and when you're playing a team where you're on your doubleheader, they're playing their only game of the weekend, and it's the last game of the weekend to go to the playoffs. Like they had
yep,
a little bit more juice than us, and they earned it. We did not, and that's what it comes
yep,
down to. And you eat the punches, you roll with them a little bit, and you learn from it. And like you said, it hasn't happened. I think I've missed the playoffs twice in my whole career. And that to me is still shocking. I'm watching these games and I'm just like, wait, our season's over. We're not on a bye week. It's just done.
yeah. It's weird. It's a weird feeling. So, all right, well, there's your Cannons catch up segment. So let's talk about the teams that are playing round one of the playoffs last weekend in Minneapolis. So I've been on a real cold streak here coming down the stretch of picking games. Um, I luckily wasn't on air last week, but if I were, I probably would have picked not probably. I definitely would have picked Carolina. I have to admit would have picked the Whips. Neither game goes kind of how I expected, or even like it's hard to say the hot teams. I mean, the chaos coming in. Obviously, they lose the last game to the Archers, but that felt a little bit like a wash because it was a meaningless game. They felt like the team coming off that win against Denver, and like they felt like the team that was, maybe championship ready of all the four teams playing this weekend. So I want to start there, and we'll go back to the Philadelphia Whipsnakes game. But when you like the Redwoods, obviously have this crazy streaky season. You know that they can be good, but they were very hard to trust, and it's a lot of unproven guys that you haven't seen have playoff success as a group. What did you see when you were watching this game? What stood out, or how did the Redwoods pull this off? We've seen the chaos so many times. You and I have had a front row seat to it, more times than we probably care to remember. Like, why were the Redwoods able to avoid that situation where the chaos defense does what it does and they kind of show up in the playoffs? What was different, I guess, about this?
Yeah, no, it was a wild game. I watched both of these games from start to finish. And I think, we talked briefly before this, it's like it was a tale of two halves. And if you look at the
Yeah,
second and third quarters of those games, each team dominated one of those quarters. And I credit Coach Train, man. I think he is obviously an intense dude, but I think he just has a positive mindset with this younger group that he has, and being a new face, that he keeps belief in them of just keep playing, right? Of that quote unquote
yeah,
make the next play, because If you make the next one, you can end up having 4 of those in a row where
Yeah.
you could score on 3 or 4 of those possessions. And Kavanaugh and McAdory are just
Yeah. McAdory.
they're ballers, man. Those kids are running the show on that offense, and the biggest difference was Erlin making saves. You know,
So McAdory goes 4 goals on 57% shooting. Cav goes 3 goals on 33% shooting. Bertrand 2 goals on 66% shooting. One thing I started doing this year is when I look at these recaps, going down the point totals and then looking at shooting percentages. And like as well as I do, 30% or above, and you're happy generally as an offensive
they
player.
got 5
You got to
guys.
get down. Yeah, you got to get down all the way down to Dylan Malloy, who's at 16% with 1 goal before you get to somebody that's below 30%. Like they had a great day shooting the ball. And there was a moment that stuck with me all year from early in the season. It might have even been Redwoods Chaos. Like I can't remember who they were playing against, but I think it was in Carolina. Somebody jumped on the Redwoods early and they go in the huddle. They're down 5-0 with Train. And Coach Train, as you call him, trained us, Coach Kelly, whatever. And he says, listen, it's just like you said, it's make the next play. And I remember like kind of getting chills listening to him coach, because I was like, this reminds me of the fucking Outlaws. Like it is just this really simplistic belief of like just next 5 minutes, next play. And I agree, he does have a way of weathering storms as a coach that doesn't help anybody panic. And you just made this point, but I'm going to reiterate it: empowering young guys
Yeah,
to feel like you are fine and you will make the next play and you deserve and belong here. And he's done that with so many guys. We saw Denenza make a ton of plays in the last week of the season. Then we see McAdory and Kavanaugh. Bertrand, who's been kind of quiet relative for him, right? I mean, he's a guy who was Team USA guy, like has been a guy in this league, relatively quiet this season, but like 2 big goals in this game as well. And then Garnsey, who, I think is kind of billed as a star player because of the way he scores and his charisma, but he's in a role in this team, which is a role he should be in. Like
yeah,
he scores the huge goal to beat you guys. Like he's definitely still has that it factor, but
and
he's
it's
not
perfect.
relied on to like
It's
carry
perfect
the
for him.
ball all the
It's
time.
perfect for him.
Exactly.
And
Yep.
in a way, like as a lacrosse fan, and obviously I'm still playing, but I'm gonna put like a lacrosse analyst hat on and just a lacrosse shop talker guy. It's like that's good to see for a lot of these guys. Like you hit that point in your
Yeah.
career where you change roles a little bit, it takes some weight off your shoulders and you can enjoy it more. I
Yeah.
think a guy like Ryder, he's an emotional player, plays a lot of pop, but like sometimes that makes him go, and sometimes in the past that probably hurt him a shit ton. And I
Yeah.
could just see him enjoying it. Obviously, with Cav, a guy who he's coached, like seeing him succeed and doing it with him,
Yeah.
that's inspiring, man. Right? And
Yeah.
just circling back to this game, like there was some crazy shit that happened too, right? Like Romar takes a 2-pointer, hits off the back of a defender, goes in like for a momentum swing. So like, but you make your own luck sometimes, and I think something like
Yeah.
that with this team, it's there, and I've
It's
experienced it.
magic. The magical fairy dust. The full moon comes out. Romar gets a bank 2. Ryder gets a crazy one-handed goal to win a game. Like these are the things in the PLL when every game's going to be 1 goal and tight. And Harty and I have talked about this like at the beginning of the season. Like there's a magic that happens. I truly will. I think I only experienced this magic once in my 10-year pro career, and that was the 2015 Cannons, where you can just fully feel. Maybe the Bubble Archers was like the closest we got to, where you just feel like, oh, everything's clicking here. Like
Yeah,
it just feels like the ball is going to bounce our way, and it's not luck. It's because of the sum of the parts. But this Redwoods team like has that for sure. And another story that it's been told, but we should just mention is Dylan Malloy. Like that guy's been through the ringer in pro lacrosse. Like he went from Tawarton lacrosse darling Brown to the Final Four to kind of being like a little bit of a villain because of not coming over to the PLL and like there. I guess you probably have to be a true pro lacrosse kind of watcher to remember that story, but. And I'm not sitting here saying he got blackballed. I know there's people online that would like say that. Like that didn't happen. He just didn't. He underperformed. Then he kind of wasn't in the league for 2 years, and so spots got taken. And then he never really found a place where it was like, what Train has done. This is your spot on attack. You're not going out there every week playing for your job. You have the spot. We trust you. Go. He didn't have his best game in this game, but it's just another one of those stories on this team where here's a guy who obviously has and has had the talent, and now he's got the trust of his teammates and
Yeah.
coaches in a way that he hasn't had in probably honestly since like his rookie year, which would have been like 7 or 8 years ago.
Yeah, and I credit Joe Spallina too there, right? Like he had a relationship with Malloy in when the PLL started. Malloy stayed in the MLL and played on the Lizards that year. Like
Yeah.
Joe, he's been doing it for a long time, and his family is lacrosse, right? So he knows some of these guys that have been on the bench are kind of like in no man's land. And
Yeah.
his Dylan Malloy style is no one plays like Dylan Malloy, right? The body blows and the matchup versus Rowlett,
Yep.
like you can hear the announcers. It was actually fun to hear. And here we go again. Here comes round 4. And when you have a guy like that that's willing to do that, and I honestly think Malloy is his game is transformed because a lot of those are turning into executed plays as opposed to turnovers, which probably is what might be happened to him if getting pushed out of a position was like taking care of the ball. But with the younger guys around him, with the coach train and what he's doing, it seems like everyone is bringing the best out of themselves and they're one step closer. It's you can lose this
Now
next game and it might feel like the
with
world's over, but they've gotten to a good point in the season.
with Rowlett on Malloy, do you think that's because do you typically see Newman covering lefties and Rowlett covering righties? Like what?
I I think Jared likes covering Ryder.
Got
Um,
it.
Rowlett,
Because
you know,
because I was on the lacrosse network saying, oh, the matchups here are obvious. You put Newman
I
on,
heard you. I heard you. I heard you. Yeah.
and I would say Rat was right. Like I mean that one to me is a little bit of a head scratcher because like
I
I watch Newman cover the Rambos of the world back in the day, Brennan, like anybody, like you're just so big. If your game is to lean in and use that to create separation, like that to me, and I know I mean, I hear you on Ryder. He's always covered fields really well. Like I do feel like Newman is over there covering lefties quite often,
Yeah,
but
he's
like
covered me before.
Newman's got 30 pounds on Rowlett. And like,
Yeah.
and again, I'm not Malloy. It's not like Malloy. Like Rowlett is incredible, and it's not like Malloy had a huge game. That to me was just I don't know. I just maybe I'm just upset because I was wrong, but that's a weird matchup choice to me.
And during the game, Rowlett on like a mic'd up was like, "Hey, I might bump to Cav, bump Jared to Malloy, and get Ray to Garnsey." So like, I'm sure they had other plans if something were to go wrong, but I also think Jack likes to cover, the most dominant Dodger, and I think Malloy has that from behind on that team. Kavanaugh does it from the high wing a little bit more.
Yeah,
And maybe they were like put Jared on Garnsey, that they've had history in the past of talking shit to each other. And it's kind of like a
it's
pride
and look,
matchup.
this is I'm gonna actually use this to switch gears to the chaos a little bit. The last thing I do just want to highlight is TD Erlin when you talk about being able to weather storms and stay in games and train kind of practice like that game where I talked about where Train gave that speech, TD went and scored on the next faceoff to make it 5-1. And when you play make it take it in this league, especially now that poles aren't facing off, he is a big. I mean, he's probably certainly Kavanaugh, but like TD is a big time player on this team. I think he's probably going to win faceoff player of the year this year. He's had a huge season and he has done, he deserves a lot of credit as well. But I'm just gonna parlay into that. I mean, Blaze and Jared and Jack and Ray, we've preached or praised that defense the entire year. You got to call. I mean, you got to call it like you see it. Blaze didn't have his best season. He didn't have his best night. 43%, 10 saves. Sweeney, like the Chaos staff deserves a ton of credit for the season they had, and I think they overperformed everybody's expectations. I'm gonna just hammer it one more time. Like to me, you're overthinking some of the matchup stuff there. I don't. It just feels like Cav was the engine. Cav was the best player on that attack, so that's who gets Rowlett. Malloy relies on size. You've got a 6'5" strong ass defender over here. Put those two together. Ryder is the third option on that attack. Like it's just like he scores the big goal, but he's not. He's the third option. Like put your third defenseman on him. and there's so like which whether that's Troy Ray or whoever, like so I don't love the matchups, and I think that's part of like Blaze not having his best. But I also maybe this is just a matter of they run a team just kind of runs out of juice, and maybe just there's a little less there from that like belief standpoint and what they can do long term comparatively. And the entire season, right, the Chaos offense is overachieving, and they kind of hit a wall. And also credit to Chase Ireland, who really shaky in the beginning of the year for the Redwoods, completely outplays Blaze in this game, which that was not on my bingo card of things I would expect to happen.
Yeah, I mean, your goalie has 18 saves. You have a good chance of winning the game. You hit a 2-pointer, they win 14-12. But what it came down to is it the second half was 9-4, right? And um, being able to make those stops, Hiltz had a good game. Owen Hiltz is going to be a stud in this league moving forward.
Yeah,
Watching him play is,
dude.
is fun to
What's the
watch.
deal
But
with that? What is going on at Syracuse? Because Owen Hiltz apparently is Jeff Teat, but you never would have known it watching fucking Syracuse play. Like,
yeah, well,
is that
you
because
look.
Joey is so ball dominant in that offense? Because I did not know Hiltz could like run off picks, and he was playing like wing quarterback the way Teat does in this chaos offense. He wasn't doing that at Syracuse. Like he
Well, it's
was
the same
good, of
thing.
course, but
It's the same thing with McAdory. Like the
yeah,
kid, he's running out of the box now, and he played a midfield and attack at Duke throughout his career. But it's like, in a way, it's you could be like, what's going on at school that you're not unleashing your best players in a way, but it's also really cool to see, and hopefully it's a weight off their shoulders where they're just like playing free now and putting on a really good
yeah,
product for the
yeah,
sport of lacrosse. But
yeah.
it
And
does it
you're
does offer questions
Yeah, but you're also right. Like you could look across pro sports in every sport, and there's really good pros who like in college weren't what they are professionally. And I think part of that too is certain players elevate the better players that are around them, the better they become. Chris
totally.
Kavanaugh is a perfect example of that. Like if Chris Kavanaugh is not playing with Malloy and McAdory and like he's still very 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 good, but he's better the more great players you surround himself with him with. And I think like that's McAdory. He can just run out of the box and be athletic. You don't have to have the responsibility to do 15 other things the way you did at Duke. And maybe that's Hiltz a little bit too. Although to me, Hiltz is different because it's not like, like with McAdory and Kavanaugh, I feel like they have less responsibility than they had in their college offenses. And that's why
Totally.
they're with Hiltz, he's got more responsibility in this offense than he had at
And
Syracuse.
he's
And
and he's
he's
owning the shit out of it.
yeah, right. So it's pretty crazy to see, but really cool to watch. And like, look, at the end of the day, you kind of alluded to it. There's one winner and everybody else is a loser. So there's no like, congrats to the Chaos for nothing. But in general, from my perspective, they overachieved. Colsey, like proof of concept as a coach. McCready, Sweeney, like they looked like they were going to be awful at the beginning of the year. And like they rallied, they got something out of that offense. They have a GM too in Spencer Ford who Spallina has been around pro lacrosse a long time, and now we'll get like an actual full off season to tinker with the roster. Feels like they're trending in the right direction. Blaze isn't going anywhere. He's going to come back and be Blaze again. Rowlett and Newman are still young. Like that core on defense, I would say has another 3 years probably
For
of
sure.
like them all being like very much in their prime still because they're all pretty young. Ray, Rowlett, Newman, the guys we talk about consistently. So they just need to like enhance the offense clearly, plug in another D player here or there, and they're probably going to be a team that people have to deal with. And they found something with Inacio at the faceoff X this year too.
Yeah, and their D midi core, they went a little bit younger. They obviously still had
Yeah.
Glacini running out there with some experience probably to teach these guys, but like you said, they're a group rat that I would love to have like a hard knock season on those guys to just hear what those meetings sound like, and the biggest thing that I want to, from watching every game, things we talk about, every weekend, just in our text groups with our friends, it's like, you also saw a shift in Coach Colsey handing the keys to Matt McCready's a bunch as the offensive coordinator, which I think made a difference
Yep.
where,
Me too.
for I hope all those guys knew who Matt was because Matt was a stud lacrosse player at Penn State in the MLL days and
Atlanta
always did the
Blaze,
right,
baby.
Yeah, and
We traded Miles Jones for Matt McCready's. For any of you new pro lacrosse fans, Miles Jones, first overall pick, and we traded him. I did not make this trade, but just because Miles Jones is a household name and Matt McCready's isn't, so I'm sharing that to speak to how
yeah,
freaking good of a player he was when he was in his prime in those Bayhawks years. Came to Atlanta, unfortunately, like injuries kind of took him down later in his career, but absolute
yeah.
stud, super high IQ.
IQ and just made minimal mistakes. I always talk about two guys whenever I was on the opposite team on the attack side and watching the other team's offense. Matt McCready's and John Haas, whenever they had a short stick on them, I was like, oh shit, right? Because those
Yeah,
guys just made plays and were such smart lacrosse players. So,
yeah, yeah.
just really, really cool to
So
see.
good job, Chaos. On to next year for you guys, though. You down. See ya. All right. So the other game. So we had the same score alert in both quarterfinal games, 14
Yeah.
12. This time it is the Water Dogs Whip Snakes. A really interesting game because it looked to me like, and I guess it was pretty even throughout, but it just felt like in the second half, the Whip Snakes were kind of grabbing control of the game in a similar way that they did. I mean, obviously the Water Dogs were kind of up, right? The entire time. I think it was 9-6 at halftime. The Water Dogs lead. Then they kind of hold that 3-goal lead, if something like that. But it just felt like the Whip Snakes were going on this run there in the third quarter and kind of early into the fourth. And I felt like, oh, this looks just like the Cannons games. Like they're just clawing back and they're just going to take control of this game, and their defense is kind of putting the clamps on. And then finally, there's this long drought, right? And then the Water Dogs get those 2 goals late. Once the Whip Snakes get it all the way back to tied, the Water Dogs get those 2 goals late. I mean, fucking Kieran McCardle, like it's just like I've seen that before, from him. Water Dogs deserve a lot of credit. Like I told you, I probably would have bet on the Whip Snakes before the game. I just felt like their defense and something has just seemed to be missing from the Water Dogs. But the thing with them for me is it's just the talent on their offense is so overwhelming that you keep kind of feeling like they are hard to bet against because of the Jimmies and Joes out there on offense for them. What did you see in this game? I mean, what was I rambled through a bunch of things, but what was kind of the one or two big takeaways that you felt like were the difference? And was it CJ Kirst? Like, I mean, what was it for
Yeah.
the Water Dogs?
It it was their attack unit.
Yeah,
Their attack had 19 points. Like that's absurd. Um, and when you look at this game, I honestly thought the Whip Snakes were going to win as well. Just from playoff mode, Whip Snakes being there before with a core. Obviously, the Water Dogs have won; they've been in the playoffs too. But from playing against them this year and watching every single game throughout the year as well, it's like sometimes you don't know what Water Dogs team you're going to get. I feel like the Whip Snakes are always
yeah, for sure.
pretty
Yeah,
consistent.
yeah.
Um, just based off of, I'm not going to say culture, but just from the personnel that you've had on your team and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, it's steadying force with Dunn and Mueller and
Yeah,
Nards.
yeah.
Like, yeah, there's
And
for sure.
what's the biggest thing that's changed for the Whip Snakes the past 2 years is like goalie play, right? Like losing Burnlore and getting a reshift in the goal has changed a couple of things. But I think the
Yep.
biggest story from this game is just how well the Water Dogs attack unit played, right?
Yeah,
The
yeah. I mean,
midfield
Sowers
didn't,
has 8 points, 4-4.
yeah, the midfield didn't score. I think Hannah had an assist. I think Dylan Hess had an assist in transition. So for this group, you can when you win a game like that, right? A quarterfinal game, 14-12, everyone's happy, right? Like that's what good teams do. Everyone's happy. But when you look at it, it's like, are you going to be able to survive 2 more playoff games with just your attack scoring goals? Or, you need to have a little bit. I think that's been a theme of the Water Dogs offense is that the midfield can go cold. You guys have talked about it. Like I'm a lacrosse player. I've seen it,
Can
but
go cold. Where the fuck are they? At the
yeah,
beginning of the season, McConvey looked like he was going to win the fucking Heisman, and Connor Kelly's the most consistent of the three. I'm not gonna say a word about him. He's clutch. He generally shows up for me. But like, where are McConvey and Hannah? I don't understand it. They have every tool in the toolkit. Like they have every shot. They're big. They got both hands. And then they just like don't score points. It
yeah.
doesn't. Can you explain this to me? I don't fucking get it.
I I think for them, and again, we're not in the locker room. It could be like get the ball to the Italians and let the attack handle and make the plays.
Yeah.
But I also think from watching them, they're not shooting the ball very well this year. I think they missed it. Like
Yeah.
they missed the net a lot, and some of them, are could be late shot clock, whatever it may be. You could think of other things, but I just don't think they're shooting the ball well. Which
Which
make
maybe
which
when you're not for midi, sometimes high volume shooting, like they're not getting as many shots,
yeah,
right? So then
100%.
like sometimes that creates like a little bit of a tightness where like I'm only going to get 4 or 5 shots today. I mean, missing the net on that team is a pass to Sours though. Like that's not the worst thing that can happen.
Yeah, well, to your point, right? Just looking at it quickly, Hannah, McConvey, Kelly, their starting midfield line had 7 shots total. Their attack had 30, right?
Yeah.
So
Wow,
if
7 shots between the 3 of them.
between the three,
Yeah, that's fucked. I mean, I had 7 shots for most of the time when I was playing
well,
on the Blaze.
but look at it, right? Sowers shoots 4 for 6. Kieran McCart, like you,
Jeez.
and this is where I think Kieran McCardle is a very good lacrosse player. He just gets shit done. Like he's just a really, really good lacrosse player. I've respected him for a long time, right? You play a Whip Snakes defense. You know that Michael Sowers, his favorite target's Kieran McCardle. Kieran McCardle had 14 shots in this game.
Yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
like you look at, and I was watching the game and I was like, oh, Kieran's getting a lot of looks here. Like he must be fired up. And obviously he scored an unassisted goal to win the game and whatnot. But as a lacrosse player, I've played against the Whip Snakes and whatnot. It's like when they look at you off ball and take you away from sometimes where I might have 4 shots in a game. Like, how the fuck did he get 14 shots?
Yeah, but
Like,
how much? But that goes back to how much of that is the CJ Kurtz effect because he scored
100%.
not just goals, but he scores these like spectacular goals. Like the behind the back that he scored in the first half with no
Yeah.
angle is a ridiculous goal. And then even the other one is more subtle where he cuts off ball, catches it, and kind of hezzies and then goes near side.
It's so
And I
good.
know from being on defense that you see that stuff, and it's like the goal counts for more than one because you're like, oh fuck. And then if you're that off ball guy guarding Kieran, you start wandering around thinking about CJ and other things more, and then it ends up burning you. So, but I'm going to go back to the midfield for a second because I think the reason I get so fired up about the Water Dogs midfield not producing is the eye test on them. Like any other midfield, like you could tell me the Atlas midfield had 0 points, and I'd be like, yeah, whatever. They have Teat and Shelly, and but when you watch these guys when they score, it like jumps off the page. Like all 3 of them, I've said this so many times, have this size, speed, two handedness, and like indoor stick skills ability and stretch shooting. So you look at them and you're like, everything's there for an elite midi. Like they're all 5-tool athletes. It's like I almost like I want more out of them because how good I think they all are. But
Yeah.
it's like at the end of the day, if you don't produce, you're not that. You have to like to some extent. I mean, if you win, maybe they're doing the invisible things and they're drawing slides and they're creating opportunities. That's not really what it's looked like to me this year, though. It's looked like Jack's like Superman. Kieran does what Kieran always does, and that's how their offense goes. It's like for them to win the championship, it does feel like those middies are going to have to hit a few shots at some
Yeah.
point
Well,
in big moments.
and I completely agree. And we all know they're capable of doing because we saw it and we've seen Connor Kelly do it. We've seen Zach
Yeah.
Courier do it, right? Jack Hanna's, continuing to be a stud in the indoor and outdoor game. But then again, I just go back to my point of like, I wonder if that's inside the Water Dogs offensive meetings and huddles and pregame and game planning. It's like middies go out there and don't
Do
fuck
too
up.
much.
Just
Yeah.
literally get the ball to
If
the
that's how you're
attack.
coaching them, then you're fucking up because those guys, like, and I will go back to a moment. The one that if you had to say, Scott, who you putting your money on, a Water Dogs midi is gonna hit the game winning shot to win the championship. It's Connor Kelly every time for me. And they had to going back to the last week of the regular season. They, and this is actually it would be a good segue into kind of a preview, but they had to lose by 2 or less, right? Like we didn't really get to see who won that game because the Water Dogs smartly realized trying to win could put us at risk of losing by 3. Better to not do that. Like just take them. So they were down by 4, and Connor Kelly just slaps a 2-pointer, And this is like kind of what I'm talking about. Like you
Yeah.
see that shot. There's like 3 guys in the league that can hit that shot. It's like Romar, maybe Leroy Martin every now and then, and Connor Kelly. They can shoot like a weird angle 2 and just feet set, not even like running into it, and just ping the corner to essentially put them in the playoffs. Like, so I know it's in there for him. We've seen it from him, like just kind of over and over again, like this clutch gene. But I do think that is something that, like, if it's likely it's this week against the Atlas. Like those guys are you're not going to outscore the Atlas, and maybe it's whichever midfield performs better, because those two attacks side by side are, almost like cancel each other out to some extent. But that's the disappointing thing in them. But man, they deserve a lot of credit, because to be kind of carrying that 3-goal lead like the entire time, and have Nards and the Whip Snakes get it back to tied, and then you score the last 2 goals of the game. Like that's playoff pedigree, tough win.
Yeah, and just like the Redwoods game too, like Brad Smith hit it too to tie
Yep.
it, right?
Right.
So, and the Whip Snakes, I think they had 8 or 9 guys in the scoring sheet, so their offense was pretty spread out, but their defense just couldn't stop that Water Dogs attack, right? So
Yep.
that's the name of it. Like, if before the game,
The
I
score
thought the Whip
sheet.
Snake. I thought the Whip Snakes defense, like from playing them the prior week and the end of the season, I'm like,
Yeah, they were
they're
firing.
pretty dialed in right now. Like they're playing
Very,
good
very good.
lacrosse.
Very good. Yep.
And again, our game too, we had a ton of looks. Like that game, I hit 3 pipes, right? Whatever it may be, you give up looks, but you hope your goalie makes saves. But what it comes down to is that the Whip Snakes didn't play bad. They just couldn't get a stop or two to get the ball back to their offense and maybe, get 2 or 3 goals in a row off 4 possessions. They were just getting scored on. And that's how it goes sometimes.
That's how it goes. The stat sheet is crazy. 66% shooting on 6 shots for Sowers, 42% shooting on 14 shots for Kieran, and 40% shooting on 10 shots for CJ, and then 0% shooting down the board for the rest of
Well,
the Water Dogs players. Like,
and
nuts.
if you look at a shot chart, a lot of those are inside like 6 yards. I think they just had the Whip Snakes defense scrambling a bit. They scored,
Yeah.
there weren't a lot of goals outside or just inside the arc. So that just shows that those guys are, when Sowers has it, they're cutting, they're screening. Curse is getting to the top of the crease and finishing hard, and Kieran can score at all different angles. So it's a huge win for
And
them.
the guy who gets left out of that midfield conversation for them is Courier, because his job isn't necessarily right now. We all know he does, but he had 7 ground balls. 7.
Yeah.
So it's like, yeah, okay, you shoot 0 for 2. It's not like you had a high volume bad shooting day. You shoot 0 for 2, but you pick up 7 fucking ground balls, which to me is the equivalent of 2 goals.
And I think he won.
It's like,
I think he won two or three faceoffs too. He won. So
right. Like, so he's like, he truly gets left out. But man, like, the talent on their offense it's overwhelming. And so let's go in, Will. I mean, we're 40 minutes in. Like, let's get to looking ahead now, which is
cool.
really what I wanted to spend more time doing. And because I think we should spend more time on this game, Water Dogs Atlas. Like, that game was the last game of the season was the highest scoring game in the history of the PLL. And you didn't really get to see who won it, because I just mentioned this. The Water Dogs were in a situation where to clinch the playoffs, they had to lose a game by 2 or less. Late in the game, with the Atlas having the lead, you realize that both teams are just trying to run out the clock. So, like, if you're the Water Dogs and you go try to score and you turn it into a tie game or a 1-goal game, you risk, like, whatever, giving up a 2, and so it's just like, no, let's all just, the last 2 minutes of the game, the Water Dogs just shut it down, and both teams essentially just played to run out the clock. So you didn't really get to see who won the greatest shootout in the history of the PLL at that point. So I'm very, very excited to watch this matchup. I think it's the 2 best offenses. Well, you got to put the Outlaws there, but it's 3 of the best offenses I can remember watching. Like, these 3 offenses are all just so good from a talent perspective. What do you think is the difference in this game? And I just got a bunch of different ideas. Is it which midfield unit plays better? Is it like, what's going to be the thing that decides? Is it the Trevor Baptiste kind of X factor? Like, what's the thing for you that's going to decide who wins this? What presumably will be another shootout.
Yeah, I could definitely see how Hartsey gets confused sometimes when it's his turn to talk because he just ripped off like 17 different things.
Oh,
Um,
I got a lot of
but
thoughts.
I love it. I'm ready for it. But I think Rat like Water Dogs, Atlas. You've said it. I think both offenses have ability to be spectacular, whether that's winning one-on-one matchups and scoring unassisted goals and scoring assisted goals, right? So what I honestly think it's going to come down to is legitimate goalie play. Like, is Liam Entenmann going to outplay who, right? Is it going to be DeLuca again, or are they going to, you know, what are they going to do in the goal there? And
Yeah.
um, if I'm them, I ride DeLuca right now just to try to keep some sort of consistency. Um, but we've seen it change all year long. So for me, I'm giving advantage Atlas because of the stronger goalie and more consistent. But I honestly think, dude, like I've played both of those teams. Their defense, like it depends on what offense is going to take advantage of the mistakes on defense because they do make a ton of mistakes. Those groups, like you play them and you're like, what is the game plan here?
Yep.
Is Adler going to is Adler going to press Sowers at X, and that's when the Water Dog midfielders are going to cook. They can get underneath, and there's one less defender.
Yep.
So I want it to be a fun game, but I'm going to give advantage Atlas just based off of Entenmann being a really good ball stopper, especially, on some inside stops where he could steal a couple of those. Um, and but at the same time, Atlas haven't played, right? They've had that bye. They got to practice, and the Water Dogs are rolling off of a big team morale win, winning a quarterfinal game. So there's a lot of cool factors, but I just think it comes down to goalie play. Who's going to get the 13 plus saves, 14 plus saves, because both teams are going to, they're going to be shooting some rubber. And I think the Water Dogs midfielders are going to be hungry after their last outing to be like, we need to produce more. Um,
Yeah.
so I know that was a lot, but I just think it's going to come down to what defense can commit to their game plan and execute it because both offenses are electric.
So here's how I see it. Offensively, I call it a push. I mean, it's crazy to say this, but if anything, I find myself leaning Water Dogs there. Like I just like this Atlas. It's because I've seen Kieran and Sowers win a championship. Like, and I just
Yeah,
haven't seen this Atlas group do it in the playoffs. But it's I would probably call it a push if I'm doing it on paper. Defensively, I probably lean slightly towards the Water Dogs, slightly, right? I think you kind of mentioned it. Like sometimes with the Atlas defense, it just doesn't look like they really have an identity. I do think Danny Logan obviously is very very. I mean, like they both teams have good personnel. I just think these young guys on the Water Dogs defense have shown up and been really physical. And when Brower is
yeah, that
healthy,
kid, that kid's electric.
he's a beast. So like I lean slightly towards them defensively, where the Atlas have this massive advantage on paper is face-off X and goalie.
Yeah,
And those are two pretty important positions generally. So it feels like the game tilts towards them, which whether it's a close game and somehow it's kind of the opposite of what we saw, you're going to bet on Entenmann to be the one to make, more likely to get hot and make the late saves in a close game. And if it's a shootout, you're going to bet on Baptiste to say, well, the Atlas in a shootout, the Atlas are going to get the ball. It could be 10. I mean, Atticus has been good. It's not going to be an 80%, but like if Baptiste is at 60,
yeah,
they're getting the ball 12 to every 8. The more points, the more possessions. So like both of those things to me tilt Atlas. But there's something I don't know if I'm just like a product of like I've seen the Water Dogs do it. There is a little bit of this like belief thing that Kieran and Sowers kind of bring to them that I don't feel yet
yeah.
from like Shelley and Teat. But I think Shelley has had the eye of the fucking tiger. He's probably going to win MVP. But it's a little bit of like a prove it to me from them more so than the Water in this
Yeah,
situation.
on both of those points, right? Face off X and goalie play. I remember when we forgot what year it was, but we're tight with Joe Nardella. and we were shooting the shit one day. And I think he had an equation when he was on early days of the Whip Snakes with Burnlore, where he's like, if him and Burnlore can combine for 100%, whether he goes 70, Kyle goes 30, 60, 40, 50, whatever it is, if they can combine to get over 100%, they're probably going to win that game. So to
Yeah.
that point, I think Trevor and Liam are probably going to be over 100%, which now, again, they're very similar teams in my opinion. I've played against them. I
Yeah.
watched
Same.
them a lot. Very freaking
Yeah.
similar, offensively, defensively. Advantage at the faceoff X, 100%. Goalie play, depends on who plays for the Water Dogs and how they play. But Liam's
Yeah, but
definitely more
it
consistent.
doesn't really.
But
Yeah, yeah.
but
By a long
but
shot this season, he's
the
been
question is,
way better.
what Water Dogs team is going to show up? Like,
Yeah.
because we've seen them. I watch them play, and they're struggling to score, and then it's the next week they're scoring 6 goals in the first 8 minutes of the game. If
Yep.
they start hot, they can ride with it. If they start a little bit slow and get a little frustrated, I don't know if they have, especially versus a team that's pretty damn consistent and has a really good attack unit in the Atlas, like, and going to win a lot of faceoffs, get more touches. It's going to be interesting to see.
So it's first off, what a great little nugget there with the face-off guy and the goalie kind of combining to get to 100. I think that's a very telling stat. I definitely agree. What I could see happening, so I'm going to put on my prediction cap. I could see the Water Dogs jumping out early. Like you're not coming off the bye week. You gotta be a little tight if you're the Atlas. Like I don't know if they feel it, but if I were them, I'd be like, "Yo, when
And
is
they're in
this Atlas team
Philly.
gonna actually win fucking something?" Yeah,
And
they're
they're
in
in
Philly.
Philly.
So like the Atlas to me have a little bit of this like Baltimore Ravens vibe going on to them right now. Jeff T is like the Lamar Jackson of the PLL. Stat merchant, MVP, all the accolades, but like not over the hump in outdoor lacrosse. Like, and I think the defense worries me because even in the last Water Dogs matchup, you're winning faceoffs, you're better in the cage, but your defense is getting fucking bullied to a point where they're still in the game. Like you're up by 4 and you give up a fucking 2-pointer to Connor Kelly. Like what? Like there's things that their defense does that makes me want to pull my hair out. I could see the Water Dogs jumping out to an early lead to some extent in this game. Ultimately, and I'll make my official pick. I think the Atlas will claw back, and end up in the fourth quarter riding Trevor, pulling away by 2 or 3 goals and winning the game in not a 1-goal game, in a 2-goal or a 3-goal or 4-goal game. Like I think it'll be like they're going to have to take the best punch, and it's going to be a good punch. And I think it could end up being 17-15. It could be 13-11. Like I'm not going to pick the score, but I just think the Water Dog, like the Atlas will be rusty, will be a little tighter, not having played last week. But I just think ultimately they're going to get too many possessions. I think Schellenberger is looking like a guy who is ready to be the leader of a championship level offense. And I think with that many possessions, I think Entenmann's a gamer. I mean, not I think, I know he is. He won 2 national championships. He was the best player on the field for the second one. Like I just think they'll get enough from those guys in quarters 2, 3, and 4 to win in a way that they'll run out the clock and chuck the ball up in the air. It's not gonna require an overtime or a game winning goal. That's my prediction. Where do you stand? Who's gonna win the game?
Yeah. I'm going to roll. I think the Atlas win by 2.
Yeah,
With the extra possessions, and I honestly think looking more at the Atlas attack versus the Water Dogs defense, right? I think you go, right, Randall's going to be on Teat, Brower is going to be on Shelley, and then I think it could be a field day
yeah.
um
The Slim Reaper.
for Slim because I don't think Freehill's that good off ball. Um,
Yeah,
but
they kind
what's
of
the
have like
what's the game
three
plan? All right,
meatheads.
what's the say it again?
They kind of have 3 meatheads down there on that Water Dogs defense. Like there's 3 athletic cover guys. One of them's got to cover Dixon and is going to be getting cut left and right the entire game.
Yeah, it's like, but what's the game plan? Are you going to look away and really take it away and just try to make Shelley and Teat score? Or are you going to play team defense where Slim's really good at cutting off ball and Xander's good at,
Yeah.
getting other guys open? Um, so that's going to be fun to watch. But I'm going to go with the Atlas by 1 or 2 here. It's going to be a close game, I think, but
Yeah.
just I think there's just more consistency there from them throughout the year.
Yeah. Yeah, and at the end of the day, like, look, and we're gonna get into the next game now, and I just spoil my pick. Like, it's hard not to pick the Outlaws. Denver, New York feels like the game the people deserve. Like they've been not kind of they've been the two best teams all year, and ultimately, generally in pro lacrosse, that's not the way it goes. Like, which kind of makes me feel like the Water Dogs would be spoiler and like get themselves there. But I just like I'd love to see that New York Denver matchup in the championship game, and I hope that the Atlas can show up and give that to us. I definitely feel more confident in the Outlaws to do it than I do in the Atlas. But based on my track record, that probably means the Atlas will win and the Redwoods will win. So let's talk about that game quick because look, I think this one has less to dive into. Well, I don't need to go on a 10-minute rant to tee you up for this one, but on paper, they're going to talk about the Kavanaugh Bowl, but it's here's what this one reminds me of. It reminds me of the Washington Commanders against the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFC Championship game last year. Like, you've got the team that's clearly ready and has looked ready. I mean, they were 0-2 and then they just stopped losing and is just loaded with talent. And then you got this team where it's like, oh shit, like new coach, new kind of star player emerging and all, but it's like, how the fuck did they end up here? Like, so I just like at some point these stories generally end, and like if it's not, and man, I love me some Coach Kelly. I know you do, but like it's just like I'm gonna if you can hear me, I'm gonna pick against you until you win the championship. So if you win this one, I'm gonna pick against you again in the championship game because it's just like they were so up and down. It's hard to see it happening for them. But so that's not a super great breakdown, but it's more just like they haven't really. It normally takes going through a process to get here, and they're very early in the process where the Outlaws feel like they're more in year 2, year 3. Obviously, like you add the Kavanaugh piece, but they kind of went through some growing pains last year, and they're more proven defensively. Even when we talk about the Water Dogs and the Atlas, the Outlaws defense, I have a lot more trust in than either of those two teams. Like you have Bernhardt and Manley and maybe the best cover guy in the league in Giles Harris with these two veterans. You have McNaney. Like there's just no holes. Like you just can't. You look at this Outlaws team. There's no holes. You have Bernhardt. You have Dalton Young, who's like Dalton Young's like a Ryan Ambler to me. Like unsung hero, unbelievable player that flourishes because he plays next to other exceptional players. It's hard not to be in love with this Outlaws team, how good they are all over the field. And I was all over them in the beginning of the year for not having any gravitas, and they've got it in spades now. Like they found it. Brendan O'Neill's scoring goals and screaming. Kavanaugh's flexing his muscles. Like they clearly have the love, the trust, the joy. Like so, it's easy for me. I think they win comfortably.
Yeah, I think the same. The only way that I feel like the Redwoods can do this is get on them early because the Outlaws haven't played in a month, right? So they had the
Yep,
bye
a
week, the
month.
last week of bye week in Boston, bye week for the whole entire league, bye week for the
And
quarterfinal.
yeah,
So that's a long ass time, bro. Like
dude, that's insane. You know what?
that's
I was trying to think, Will, does this exist in any sport? There's
no.
one sport, it no longer exists, but it used to college football. So it doesn't anymore because they do the college football playoffs. But back when it was like bowl season, the national championship game was the last bowl. So those teams would sit for like this amount of time and be like 3 weeks in between the last game and the national championship in college football. But once they went to the playoffs, that stopped happening. That is an insane thing
Yeah.
for them to have to sit down for an entire month.
Yeah, and like you said, Outlaws started out slow, found their mojo, made a goalie change, their group started playing really well together. And having a month off where the Redwoods have experienced two very emotional wins to get into the playoffs, that's going to be the storyline for me. What's the first quarter going to look like? Like, can the Redwoods show that they have played for 2 of the last 3 weeks and take advantage if the Outlaws are a little rusty? And you were saying earlier, like, I was like kind of laughing internally because I've referenced some of this as a player in my experience playing these teams still, and then watching them when they're, playing somebody else. One of our best offensive games this year for the Cannons was versus the Outlaws in Fairfield, where we scored 17
Yeah,
goals. We
true.
lost 18-17, right? And yeah, we hit a two or one or two twos there too, but it all depends on execution, how swaggy the guys feel on offense, or who's feeling it. Are they
Yeah,
vibing as a team? Because you've seen it from the Redwoods, man. Like if Cav gets going, like it doesn't matter who's covering them.
yeah.
It's a team. Those guys play. I'm very curious to see what the matchup's going to be on McAdory because I think he's faster than both those poles on the Outlaws, um, on the defensive scheme there. Um, and I don't know who's
So
dressing yet, but
yeah, but so like
I
so let me dive into that a little bit because you're exactly right. Matchups also are such a big part of all of this. And I would argue that the best type of matchup for the Outlaws defense is a team like the Water Dogs. Or even the Atlas, like a team who has a clear quarterback running the show on offense because Giles Harris is like a Graham Hossack, like he can just win a matchup against anybody in the league. And then you have these like two really good kind of second defensemen with all the experience in Bernhardt and Manley that when they're just kind of being asked to do their thing, they're not going to really make mistakes. The way that the Cannons play offense actually to me more mirrors the way the Redwoods play offense, which is like any given day you don't really know exactly where you're going to get hurt from. Like the Cannons weren't the same with Asher just like being ball dominant. It was like, well, you got to deal with Will. You might have to deal with the lefty two man with Maxi. It's Campbell's probably the best player, but it's not like he's just dominating shots. Oh, by the way, Marcus can hit twos. Like it's very hard to say like to do the Bill Belichick thing against your guys' offense and say we're going to take away what they're best at because any given week, what we're best at kind of changes. And I actually think that's what makes the Redwoods. And to go back to the chaos thing, and I'm talking about like I don't like these matchups. My whole argument really probably doesn't carry any weight because I'm like complaining about the matchups, but it's not like Dylan Malloy went off on like it's just like very hard to figure out week to week who on the Redwoods is going to hurt you. Is it going to be McAdory to score for? Cav's been the only consistent threat. To me plays a lot like Marcus. Like he does dodge, but it's kind of off ball. It's just like opportunistic.
yeah, he's
When I
fucking
get the
good.
look, I'm gonna fucking bury it. Like, but
Yeah,
it's not like an easy like put JT on him and Cavs out of the game because you put JT on him and now all of a sudden JT's playing off ball all game, which isn't his game.
100%.
So do you put Manny on him? Do you put like they're a tough team to prepare for in that regard. And I think I didn't mention this, but the other area that maybe gives the red like if you're drawing up a path for how do the Redwoods win, it's the Outlaws don't really know how to game plan defensively, and the Redwoods kind of surprise them and who ends up, getting hot and scoring goals, and it's TD. And they end up having significantly more possessions. They get a goal or two off the face-off X, and that makes it tough to overcome. But Will, I hear you on the month off. There's part of me that feels like Brendan O'Neill is going to get the ball in the first possession of the game and just hammer an on the run shot from like 13 yards, and it's going to be like, oh, okay, well
I
they're
said
fine.
I honestly think that's the only way that they have a chance at like rattling this, rattling it in the first quarter is being like, we've played, you guys haven't, like we're here. Um,
Yeah, yeah.
but like
Because
you
I
look
just
at,
don't see anybody on the Redwoods defense that can cover
yeah, well,
Brendan,
you have and
Jared.
like Jared Bernhardt dodging BJ Farrar with a short stick, like you're gonna have to slide. They're doing well off ball movement right now. They're all committing to cutting for each other. Like
They lead the league in
they're,
passes. Yeah,
yeah, they're
yeah,
they're it's an uphill climb. But if there's one team that has proven and proved people wrong that they're going to consistently play four quarters, and even if they're down by five or six, like keep trying to chip away, it's the Redwoods. But
yeah,
I'm going with
yeah.
the Outlaws in this game. Like just from the experience, I think Mike, Manley, and Jesse are hungry, right, to win. Um, and been together for a long time. JT's obviously JT. Like Tarasenko. They have a great group.
And like you
And
mentioned, like Pacino, nobody is as fast as McAdory. For my money, Pacino might be the best LSM in the league right now. Like if you're gonna have a guy to do a good job on that matchup, that's the guy I would pick. And we've seen him in big moments. I mean, he went to the World Games with the Iroquois team and won Defensive Player of the Tournament. So
yeah,
like I like trust him. Again, I'm not saying he can run stride for stride. I don't know if anybody can run stride for stride,
no,
but it's 6-on-6. That's not, there's more to the game than that, as you know. I just feel
100%.
like Pacino is kind of the guy who probably could frustrate McAdory, can be really smart and heady and not, go get out on his hands, not let him get running starts. Then like I just don't know, like Malloy, are you like you're probably so here you go. So let's talk through matchups. I mean, you're probably if I'm doing it,
Let
go
me,
ahead.
yeah, just on that point, part of me is like, I would pull somebody else and just have Tarasenko, who's fast as shit, crowd him at the
Yeah.
box
Yeah.
and get the ball out of his stick and slide. Like, because the Outlaws slide. Like I've watched film on them. We played against them. Like they have
Yeah.
a slide chain that you could take advantage of. But to mix it up sometimes, like that's what the Whip Snakes did to us. They crowd the box, and you're just like, oh shit, we weren't ready for 5-on-5 a little bit. What do we do here? We can't get the ball to these middies to initiate. That's what McAdory does, right? He's finished some plays, obviously, on the back end of a shot clock or something, but he's the guy that gets the spark going. So if you could stop that, that slows down the
I
offense. You
know,
can be
but
more compact. Like just
But
something,
you're
just throwing
you're
it out
wait
there.
if you want to stop that though, like they don't have another midi that really commands a pole. Like I just feel like I hear you, like Tarafinko's fast, but like if you put Pacino on McAdory, you can basically say like we don't have to slide to him and let him be the party starter. He runs by Pacino for 4 goals. He's not going to.
I
Like
understand. I
so
get both
then
sides.
it's
I'm
like
just throwing it
because
out
who else?
there.
I mean, they have Bertrand. They've got like they don't really have like another like if they had another midi that was like ooh I'm worried he could score 4 goals, but they don't. The rest of their offensive, like the rest of their middies are like 1 or 2 goal guys. The rest of their offense comes from that attack group. I do feel like you probably go Manly on Malloy. I also think kind of like Newman. I feel like Manly covers lefties a lot, but Manly body body. Like I just think you've got to put somebody heavy on Malloy. Like you got
Well,
it. You need to,
JT is gonna cover Cav.
yeah. And I would put Manly on
Manly is
Malloy
gonna
and
go to
Bernhard
Malloy,
on.
and Jesse's gonna go to Ryder for sure.
Although you know what, I actually don't think that's right. Now that I'm thinking back, Manly's has covered Ryder almost every time I've ever watched them play, and it's the same thing that you're saying about Newman. The advantage of size on Ryder, and like I've been a victim of this without size, is he puts all of his body weight. Like he leans so far off balance that he's going to fall over, but that's what he wants because if you pull the chair, he's just going to fall and shoot from the ground and score.
And score
So
and make ESPN and fucking make it feel like it was a
yeah.
six
So like
point
if
goal.
you're really big and heavy and he leans on you and it's like you're just not you don't it doesn't move you at all. He's and like we saw Graham Hossack do it to him this year. Like he does struggle with big matchups. But my problem with that is like I don't really love Bernhard on Malloy. So I think I don't know. It's
But
interesting. Maybe
because
Pitts goes to Malloy. Like it's interesting.
because yeah, I could see, the main like first 1-1 guess would be JT to Cav, Manley to Malloy, and Jesse to Ryder. But I could also see Jesse covering Cav,
Yeah, me
and
too.
then JT to Malloy and Manley to Ryder as well.
Yeah.
Just
Because it's
Jesse's
like that
more,
heady player to cover Cav off ball. Say, yeah, if
correct.
Cav dodges and gets 1 or 2 on me, we live with it.
Yes,
But
but
we make
but
sure these other guys.
he's going to try to eliminate the off ball, like, him popping off of a two-man game stuff that JT is probably not as cerebral as Jesse.
Yeah, yeah. It's really, man, I love breaking down matchups. It's always such an interesting part. It's such a big part of the pro game. It's big in college, but you and I both know in the pro game, it's everything. Like
Yeah,
figuring out matchups
it's all you talk
is
about.
such an important. Yeah, it really is defensive game playing. It's all you talk about. So look, not we're both on the Atlas. We're both on the Outlaws. If I were so now that we've picked, if I were a betting man, I would bet that one of those picks is going to be wrong, just because that's how this league goes. But I don't know which one it'll be. I'm super excited to watch. I am going to put you on the spot because next week obviously will be kind of the last episode of the season for Hearts and I. So it'll be us too, and we'll have to pick the final. So you pick the Atlas, you pick the Outlaws. Go ahead and finish your prediction and who's going to win the championship this year.
Yeah. I'm gonna go with the Outlaws. I just think they have an energy to them, like you talked about early in the season, that was just like a question mark of, like, obviously they care, they're competitors, they're in this league, they've played at a high level, they have Tewaaraton winners, whatever. But you could see it a little bit more now. And when you have weapons like that with some experience on defense, a rookie goalie when you have a rookie goalie giving your team confidence the way that he's giving, Logan McNaney's giving them confidence, that's a damn good recipe. And those defensemen know the Atlas attack pretty well. I think that Atlas defense has holes, and this offense for the Outlaws, like, they'll just play. Like, they're like the one offense where I feel like you don't need to have a game plan offensively and just go play, because they have a lot of guys that can dominate matchups and are fast, strong, whatever it may be. So I think the Outlaws are, the team to take it all this year, honestly.
Yeah. That stat about passes, which I love that the league tracks that, like, they lead the league in passes, and it's by a lot, and it's without a dominant faceoff guy. Like, they're not leading the league in possessions, but like those guys are playing unselfishly, and the style of player they have with Cav, with O'Neill, and even Wisnauskas to some extent, and Dalton Young, like, all of those guys are the type of players who thrive off of ball movement. Like, they all can beat a matchup, but they especially can beat a matchup when they're dodging an approach, or they're like, and so they're getting defenses cycling, and they're so good off of ball movement. So it's a good pick. Thank you, brother, for joining and talking shop with us, and it'll be fun to watch, and look forward to catching up with you this offseason.
Yeah, brother. Thank you for having me. And you guys have done a great job. It's always funny to listen to you and Heartsy go after it. And um, yeah, this is what the sport needs. And definitely for me, whenever I am done playing, getting in the booth, doing stuff like this is what I want to, continue to do, because it's fun. You can give some insight of inside huddles and experience, and you know, just appreciate what all the guys are doing to continue to push pro lacrosse forward. So just appreciate you having me tonight, and this was a ton of fun.
Cheers. Peace.
Peace.